Hi, FA Europeans. This is Matthias, and in this episode, I speak with Nick Neuman. He's the CEO of Casa, a startup from Denver in the US. Today, we talk about the different security aspects of holding crypto, and here, especially Bitcoin, as one of the more conservative plays in that field. So, one important question you have to ask yourself when holding crypto is, whom do you trust more, yourself or the exchange? So, in the past, your choice has been storing crypto on a hardware wallet and potentially losing the device or the password, or you could have kept your holdings on an exchange like Binance or Coinbase where you do not control the cryptographic key to the wallet. So basically, Casa is helping to make hardware wallets and self-custody more resistant to human failure and improving user friendliness and resilience. And by that, it's making crypto available for a broader audience and driving the evolution of the current wave of new financial services. So, hi, FA Europeans. Welcome to another episode of the Financial Independence Europe podcast. Today with me is Nick Neuman from the United States. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Mathias. Good to meet you.
And today we want to talk about a topic that is kind of separating the financial independence community a little bit. It's about crypto and how you can kind of secure it. Because I think currently it's not as user friendly as we would like to have that storing your crypto. But let's get to that in a bit. I just would like to kind of get to know you a little bit better. That's why maybe asking you how you get into this crypto thing. Have you just stopped school and signed up for a job post, or how did you get in this company, basically?
Yeah, so actually when I graduated college, I started my career in finance. So I was working in investment banking and saw that whole side of the world pretty much. And I spent almost 4 years doing that, and then really decided that I wanted to be actually building something. I felt like where I was in my career, I was spending a lot of time analyzing other companies, which was really great to learn from, but I didn't actually get to build companies myself. And that was what I wanted to do. And so jumped into the more tech startup world and eventually made my way to crypto by just the kind of same way that it seems like a lot of people do, which is you come across a YouTube video or something talking about it, and then suddenly you're down the rabbit hole and you're spending all your time thinking about it. And so that was really what got me started in this industry. And it was one of those things where I was spending all of my free time thinking about it and writing and reading and decided to jump in full time. So I was actually not the original CEO of Casa. I was originally the head of product. And at the end of 2019, the previous CEO stepped down and I took over at that point. And so it's been a couple of years now that I've been CEO. It's been an amazing experience. And it's one of those things where you just get to be right in the thick of the action on the crypto side. And it's a lot coming at you every day, but it's fun. And I've really enjoyed it.
And I think you mentioned that you have been an analyst in investment banking. How did it happen that you became a head of products? Have you been in touch with all this design thinking stuff, wireframing, or how did it happen?
Yeah, so I'd been working as a product manager. I took any job I could get at the first startup that I switched over to. It was a travel tech startup. And I was initially in operations. And then we were small enough that we needed help on the product management side. And I just started doing some of that stuff. And so I learned kind of on the job, trial by fire a little bit for a couple of years, how to be a product manager. And that was the experience that I had coming into being recruited to be head of product at Casa.
As somebody who is also working as a product manager currently in a project, what's the most difficult as a product manager that you need to get right? What have you learned there? What lessons?
I think the most difficult thing is figuring out what to prioritize and when with limited resources. You've always got some level of limited resources, right? And so figuring out what's going to have the biggest impact for the amount of time it's going to take was always the puzzle that I was trying to do as a PM. And all of the other stuff around design and how's this feature going to work and all of that kind of thing was always fun to do and kind of came second, but really proving out the case for this is why we should do this thing right now versus something else, I think is the most difficult thing as a PM.
I have also the same experience. I have to say, you have sometimes limited developer resources, or some other business owners are asking for other features and providing new requirements or increasing the scope along the road, where you already thought, oh, I thought my scope is closed, but okay.
Yes.
And then you have to also kind of convince the people above you, so kind of CEOs or other people,
right,
to support your kind of roadmap. I think that's also important to get this buy-in. Perfect.
Yeah, it's interesting because you don't really, you're not necessarily anybody's direct boss, right? So you're always trying to pull consensus from all the different areas of the team and get everybody's buy-in without directly just saying, this is what you have to do. So that I always found that kind of fun.
It's kind of fun, but on some days I also feel like begging. Please, developer, could you please, maybe, if you're kind enough, implement this? I think there's also a word, lateral leadership, kind of leading without having the formal authority. That's kind of difficult. You kind of have to convince them with your knowledge and with your expertise, and also have a sense for people, which is a great kind of to learn about the business side, but also about the people side. And I think we also had somebody in the podcast who has also been a product or a head of product, switching from an e-commerce platform company to a crypto bank, basically, and then as a head of product, and then became kind of, after a year or half a year, became the CEO, because I think she had a strong kind of vision and could bring some fresh spirit into this kind of nerd-driven company. And I think it worked.
It definitely, I think being a product manager gives you a lot of tools to then be a CEO. There's a lot of things that I've had to learn since making that shift, but it's a really good foundation in terms of working with people, managing, motivating, all that kind of thing.
And what have you learned after becoming a CEO? What have been the kind of first 3 things you needed to learn?
I think the biggest thing that I really had to get better at was speaking publicly and being able to explain the vision and why are we doing what we do? Why is this important? Why should you care, in a compelling way? That's something that when I first started, I really was not good at, because I didn't have to really do that. I was very internally focused at the company. And so I've worked a lot on that personally, but I still feel like I've got a long way to go there.
Yeah. I think these CEOs, when I kind of observe that from the outside, they have always a story or a kind of a purpose, and they repeat it so that people can follow that vision. And it must be kind of a simple sentences or simple messaging.
Right.
And is it already too late for maybe some people in the audience, listeners, who are maybe entrepreneurs or developers? Is it already too late to move into kind of crypto, or would you say it's still early days or day one?
No, it's still very early. I mean, we're at the point, I think it's an interesting and great time to be getting into our industry, because if you had been trying to get in a few years ago, there was still a question from the broader world, I think, about whether crypto was going to make it or whether it would all just collapse and go to zero. Yeah. And now we've crossed this bridge where, okay, maybe maybe you're not the earliest of early adopters, but as a benefit of that, there's a very high level of certainty that Bitcoin and crypto at large will be around and will continue to grow substantially and become a really material part of our lives. And so I think it's a great time to be getting in because not only do you have that certainty on the industry as a whole, there's also a lot of companies that have been growing a lot and hiring a lot. And so there's tons of opportunities within the industry to make a move into a company. And so I think it's a great time to be getting into the crypto industry, especially if it's something that you're interested in. There's nothing better than working on something that you find fun every day.
Yeah, I think also some people in our community are also spending their spare time in the evening or in the mornings hanging out on YouTube or reading some how to stake on Terra Luna or whatever. So it's really, so I at least yesterday had seen that you can make like 20% on Terra Luna with the Anchor protocol or something like that. I have to investigate a bit. So yeah,
there's always risk with those big, earn 20% or more. You're taking substantial, I think, risk on the technology side anytime you're doing that. But for people who are willing to take that risk, and if they make it through without having any bugs or anything like that, then I think it can be pretty profitable.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit afraid of potential bugs, and also I'm afraid that I cannot kind of monitor closely. If you're doing some of these nerd things, you kind of have to monitor this closely and get out at the right time, basically. And do you think there are still enough problems to solve, or what are the kind of the most pressing problems to solve in the maybe 1 to 2 years, so that the industry as a whole can make a progress? So what are the next problems to solve?
So I think that the problems to solve, I'm a little bit biased because we're at Casa, we're solving what I think is the most important problem. And that is just giving people a really simple way to secure their Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that they've invested in. And it's one of those things that's a very different paradigm for people. People are used to just keeping their money in the bank, and that feels safe to them in many countries, at least with stable financial systems around the world. And doing the same, acting the same way with your Bitcoin is just significantly riskier. And that's for a few reasons that we can get into if you want. But at a high level, the most important problem, I think, is making it simpler for people to secure their Bitcoin in an easy way, because then they'll feel safe using it. I think that anxiety of how do I do this thing? And this is all a whole new world and it's different and scary, and I don't know if I trust it, keeps a lot of people from investing and participating in the crypto ecosystem. And that's something that needs to be solved. We need better user experiences here.
So you don't think that it's kind of too centralized, or you don't think that there are few use cases? So you think as a user experience to get real mass adoption is kind of the most pressing problem for crypto right now, basically?
Yeah. So yes, for this reason, security is the base foundation of everything that you do in the rest of the crypto ecosystem. And so we need to get that base building block right and make it safe for people, so that then they're able to participate in the broader range of applications and decentralized use cases that are getting built out. If you don't have that fundamental building block in place, you're really at risk for the whole thing crumbling.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe then let's talk about a little bit about Casa. So I understood it's kind of a wallet. So basically, before crypto, I kind of had also a wallet with some of these coins of metal on paper. I really hated that. So I had also these bank accounts where I had these tokens on my phone or in form of a card. And now, basically, with Casa, we're moving this paper wallet or the coin wallet into a kind of other form of wallet. Can you maybe explain what it is, or what people can kind of create, that people can create an image of what Casa is and can do in their head?
Sure. So maybe before I get into what Casa does specifically, I'll just back out a little bit to give a broader view of the ways you can store your crypto. So you can basically either store it with an exchange, which is like Coinbase or Kraken, or name any other exchanges, Binance, that operate globally. And that's kind of like using a bank today.
Yeah.
Where they are holding your private keys, which are your private key is like your password to your Bitcoin, basically. And so when you're doing that, in the traditional financial system, it's actually relatively safe if you're in a stable country to hold your money in a bank, right? That's how everybody does it. And the reason for that is that a lot of the transfers that people are making are reversible. So if somebody gets in, steals your credit card or something like that, you can usually just call up your credit card company and say, hey, this wasn't me, this was fraud. And they'll put the money back in your account. But with crypto, if you send a transaction, it's irreversible. So if somebody is able to get access to your Coinbase account, for example, and send out all the Bitcoin, Coinbase can't even do anything about that. And you just lost all of your investment. So
yeah, I've seen or read some news that there was people lost some money on Coinbase, and then it was kind of maybe 6,000, and then they kind of said, okay, we will kind of refund it, because they maybe have, or Coinbase has some kind of insurance for it, and so kind of the customer of Coinbase got back their amount. But I think the reason why it got lost was some bug or some hack of Coinbase.
Yeah.
I think maybe in March it was, and so they gave back the money. If you then, I mean, this was Coinbase fault, so maybe then they had to refund. But if you kind of just sending your money from Coinbase to a wrong wallet, then I guess they can't help you that much to recover the funds.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cases. So you're right that in that specific incident, Coinbase basically took the loss off their balance sheet. I think the insurance probably covered some of it, but all of these insurance policies are never large enough to cover their whole customer base. And so anyway, the Coinbase covered and refunded the customers, but that was really because it was a bug on their side, like you said. Whereas there's a lot of people every day who are having isolated incidents where their single account gets compromised by somebody who tricks them into giving up their username and password. And Coinbase doesn't do anything about that. You just lost your money. We've seen this happen with people, and it's not ideal. And so the way to protect against that is to actually hold the keys yourself. So this is kind of what you were talking about with, you had the piece of paper or the metal where you had your private key written down, or you can hold it in a wallet on your phone where the phone holds the key on your phone itself. So if somebody logs into your account somewhere else, they can't get it because the key's only on your phone. So those are more like wallets, right? But the problem with those that you start to run into is that if you lose that key, that piece of metal or your phone or whatever, you've lost all your money. And so that causes a lot of anxiety for people too. And so you're kind of stuck between this rock and a hard place. And the reason what we started Casa to do was to give people a way to hold their own keys so that they are the one, they have that safety of somebody can't hack their account and get all their money. But at the same time, they don't have to worry about losing a key, meaning they've lost all their money. So with Casa, you actually have multiple keys that protect your Bitcoin. So
I think that was also one of the things that made me look into this a little bit more into Casa, because I also had So I'm on the one who's not kind of trusting. I'm not trusting myself because I'm not the tidiest person. So maybe
Right.
it's getting lost. And I'm also sometimes getting cards replaced, and I really like that it's kind of reversible, and they can just lock the card. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of keeping it on the exchange, but I know that it's not ideal because you have only maybe maybe it's the phone as a second factor, and then you have your password. And I think that's kind of not enough if you have a lot of money.
Right.
And I think also the whales, so the people with a lot of crypto, they also not keep their money on the exchange, but they're just moving it always when they want to make a transaction. They're moving it actually from their wallet to the exchange.
Yep.
So I think they also have their mechanisms how they store their crypto. And can you explain a little bit how it works that you have multiple keys? Because how does it work? I mean, it's
Yeah.
three, or how many keys is it?
So we have a couple of different
Mm-hmm.
levels. We've got at our free level, it's just a really simple mobile wallet on your phone,
Mm-hmm.
but we actually encrypt the key that is stored on your phone and back it up to Google Drive or iCloud or whatever cloud service that you use.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is if you lose your phone, all you need to do is log into your Casa account and your iCloud on your new phone, and it'll put the key back on your device. But as you go up in security tiers, that's when you start to have multiple keys protecting your funds. So at our basic tier, you've got three keys. One
Mm-hmm.
key is on your phone, so all you need is your phone. One key is on a hardware wallet, so that's like a ledger or a Trezor. They look like a little USB device,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And then one key is held by Casa, so you know that we always have that key. So you only need two of those three keys to actually send any Bitcoin.
So,
And
but
so let's say you lose that hardware wallet,
mm-hmm.
that you still have that key on your phone and that
Mm-hmm.
key held by Casa. And so
Okay.
it makes it much more resilient against making mistakes.
Yes, and so you're basically also targeting people who are able to kind of maintain such a hardware wallet. So that's kind of mandatory to have that. I think some of my
Yeah.
friends have these hardware wallets, and they're kind of always they have anxiety that they lose it. Some have it
Right.
in a bank deposit, so kind of locked away, and some have it maybe in their garden.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can you also have multiple wallets? Or how can you explain
Yes.
maybe how these wallets work, these hardware wallets, for the people who don't know about that?
Sure. So the way that a hardware wallet works is it basically is a special purpose device that looks like a little USB stick,
Mm-hmm.
and it holds your private key on there. And so with Casa, it's holding one of the three private keys that are protecting your funds.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you're going to go send a transaction, you are approving it from your phone. And then you're also approving it from your hardware wallet, which basically it has a little screen on it. You're plugging it into your computer, and the Casa app is walking you through actually using that and approving the transaction on that device.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody who's already using a hardware wallet and they're already familiar with this and how they work, it's really simple. And honestly, it's easier to use Casa plus a hardware wallet than it is to use the hardware wallet by itself. And that's because it gives you that one, we've done a really good job of designing our software to keep things super simple. But then two, it gives you that extra level of protection. You don't have to worry as much about losing that hardware wallet and losing all your money. And so
Mm-hmm.
then as you get to our higher security tiers from there, you increase the number of keys that are protecting your funds. And so this is really for people who are protecting more than 100,000 US dollars worth of
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin. And you actually have 5 total keys at this point. So it's one key on your phone, 3 keys on different hardware wallets, and then one key held by Casa. And at this level, we send you a package that has the hardware wallets that you need. And then we even get on the phone with you and do a video call to walk you through setup and make sure that you've got everything set up securely and correctly, and you know how to do this properly. So we have a full client service team that helps people out with that. So a lot of people come to us from, they've been on Coinbase or another exchange for a couple of years. They know the risks, but they didn't want to just take everything into holding it all on a single hardware wallet. Well, now that Casa is here to help them through it, they're comfortable with holding their own keys, and so that's what we offer at those higher security levels.
And who's the audience for? Because I think from the price level, the having 5 keys, I think it's not affordable for let's say for everyone. So can you maybe give an indication who's kind of the audience for each of these kind of levels and how much they are approximately?
Sure. So for the free wallet, that's for, you know, anybody who is storing anywhere from a couple $100 worth of Bitcoin to, you know, around 1,000, maybe a couple $1,000 of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Then you go up to our basic tier, which has the 3 keys. That's $10 a month, $10 a month. Mm-hmm. And that is for people who are anywhere from a couple $1,000 worth of Bitcoin to, you know, $75,000 or $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. And then you start to get into our premium high security tiers. These are $1,800 and $5,000 per year. So those 2 tiers. And at that level, we're really looking at people who are securing a large amount of Bitcoin. So anywhere above 100,000 to millions or tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin are our clients at those levels. Mm-hmm. So it's really meant to be more of that premium service for people who are high net worth individuals and who have a really big problem with securing their Bitcoin because they've got a lot of Bitcoin. And if they lose it, it's a significant portion of their net worth.
Yeah. And I think even if it's 5K, it's for such a high net worth individual. I think solving the problem is maybe more important than the 5K, because I mean, they make this as a performance probably in the next years. And you're also,
and actually, when you compare it, like at some of the levels of holdings for some of the clients that we serve at that 5K tier, mm-hmm. it's actually cheaper than it would be for them if they went to a professional custodian like Coinbase Custody or Fidelity or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it actually kind of flips the other way in terms of being less expensive based on the amount of holdings that you have.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Coinbase has also kind of a service like Casa, where they help people to store their money offline.
So it's basically like a higher security tier within Coinbase, where Coinbase is still holding the keys, but they are it's a higher level of security with extra, you know, verifications to move money and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Now, they don't really serve very many individuals with this. It's mostly institutions that they serve with this product. And that's just because it's really hard. They're doing manual video verification checks anytime they're moving any crypto for their clients. It's really hard to do that on a mass scale for a lot of individuals. Whereas with Casa, since the individuals are holding their own keys, Casa doesn't have to get involved every time you want to send a transaction. You're just approving it from your own set of keys. And it's really using the same security that Coinbase does behind the scenes. Coinbase is protecting their Coinbase Custody customers' funds using multiple keys. And it's the same thing. We're just bringing this to the individual.
Mm-hmm. So it's, I think, slightly more secure to work with you than with the Coinbase, because they still have the key, basically. Right. But with Casa, there's still a slightly more responsibility involved because you have to, in the end, you have to manage your keys and you have to think about locations where you put your hardware wallets. Because if you have like 5 keys, maybe in 3 hardware wallets, then you have to put them in different locations.
Yeah. And so generally what people will do is, you know, they've got 1 key on their phone, which is with them all the time. Maybe they keep 1 key at their house in a safe or something like that. They keep 1 key in a bank safety deposit box. and then one key at their office or at a relative's house, or maybe another safety deposit box or something like that. And the idea there is if you distribute those 3 keys geographically, it gives you a lot of protection against things like theft or natural disasters. So, for example, there was just in Colorado, where I live, there was just a huge fire in Boulder, one of the cities here, and it completely burned down hundreds of homes and to the ground, all just ash. It was terrible. If you were holding your key, your single hardware key in your house, it probably burned down and you've lost all your Bitcoin. Whereas if you had more of a geographical distribution with Casa of your keys, you would have been fine after that happened. So it protects against a few other angles when you distribute your keys like that.
Yeah, I think also cloud services have backups of your website or your data also in different regions because of that.
Right.
Yeah, so it makes sense. And one feature that I've seen is this helping with inheriting. So if you kind of close to die, you can also prepare with Casa to inherit your Bitcoin. How does that work?
Yeah, so there's very few solutions for ensuring that your heirs can receive the Bitcoin that you own after you pass away. And in terms of solutions where you're holding the keys, Casa is the only solution that offers this today. And the way that it works is that you basically make sure you work with our client service team. They help you through all of this, and we set it up so that we know who your beneficiary is going to be. And if you pass away, we transfer the software account to them. And so that means that they'll be able, with one other piece of information, they'll be able to access the key that was on your phone. And then second, we make sure that you have other keys that are accessible to them through the legal system or through instructions that you've left for them, et cetera. So maybe if you were keeping one of the keys in a bank safety deposit box, your heirs could actually access that key using a court order after you pass away. And then finally, there's that key held by Casa. And we, based on the beneficiary agreement that we set up, will sign with that key to approve a transaction for the people that you named as your beneficiaries. And so that gives you the 3 of the 5 keys that you need to access the Bitcoin, for your heirs to access the Bitcoin. And one of the things that people really like about this is a lot of people's family members and heirs don't actually know how to use Bitcoin, really. They're not comfortable with it. There's kind of the original person who invested is the one who is really handling this on a day-to-day basis. Well, if they pass away, their family members can just turn to Casa, and our team can actually help them through this whole process and make sure that they know what they're doing. They don't make any mistakes. And it just adds a lot of comfort for people.
Yes, because the one who's investing in Bitcoin is maybe not inheriting also the whole financial literacy or the investing knowledge to them. So they need maybe also some help to be comfortable to manage that probably large amount of crypto. And as I understood, this is I think also a unique feature. You only manage Bitcoin currently, probably because it's the most important currency, and no Ethereum or sushi coin or whatever.
Yeah, that's correct. So Bitcoin's the biggest and most important, and we really think that Bitcoin is the best form of money in the world. And so, and especially for financial independence, which we can talk through. But that's why, as a smaller team, we've really focused on securing Bitcoin, because security is one of those things where if you make a single mistake, you could accidentally cause your customers to lose money. And so for us, making sure that we had the absolute most secure system for protecting Bitcoin was more important to us than trying to support all of the different cryptocurrencies that are out there. So we wanted to be kind of an inch wide and a mile deep on our security instead of a mile wide and an inch deep on a bunch of different coins. So that's how we think about that and why we support Bitcoin only.
Yeah, and people can just convert maybe their Ethereum to Bitcoin if they really want to use the service. You sound a bit like Michael Saylor when you said Bitcoin is the only form or the best form of money.
Well, I think there's a lot of us that agree with Michael for sure, and I'm not saying that other currencies aren't money or they don't have legitimate use cases or anything like that, but I definitely believe that Bitcoin is the best form of money that we have in the world today. And especially for financial independence, like what you talk about here a lot, because it's got two properties that really make it that best form of money, in my opinion. The first is it's got that protection against inflation. And that's what a lot of people know about Bitcoin, right? So there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and it makes sure that you aren't exposed necessarily to the problems that inflation causes. And, we're seeing it today in a world post-COVID pandemic. Inflation's been pretty high around the world, and living expenses are going up. And so suddenly retirement just got way more expensive for people. And that can have a really big effect on people's financial planning. And then the second thing is, I think arguably more important, and especially for that financial independence. And that's that with Bitcoin, if you are holding your own keys, you and only you control your money. So you are being your own bank. And what that means is, when you see problems with a banking ecosystem within a country because there's a financial crisis or something like that, we've seen people have trouble accessing their money when they need it most, or sometimes it's forcibly taken from them. So if you look back to the early 2000s, Argentina was going through a financial crisis. A lot of people, especially their high net worth individuals, were holding their savings in US dollars, and the government completely restricted the ability to withdraw US dollars from their bank account. And then later they forcibly converted those US dollars to Argentine pesos. So everybody who was holding US dollars magically found that all of the dollars in their bank account had become pesos. When you hold your own keys with Bitcoin, nobody can do that without your approval. Nobody can come and seize your Bitcoin and force you to turn it into whatever currency is the national currency of the country. And so when you think about financial independence, the time that it matters the most is when everything's going wrong, right? That's when you want to make sure that you have your independence and you have a plan. And so Bitcoin is incredibly useful for that. But only if you're holding your own keys.
That's a good pitch to the financial independence community, because freedom and making your own decisions is kind of the core value of these people. And also, some of them are also traveling in countries like Turkey and not really Kazakhstan. They have also high inflation. So I think, many of them have Bitcoin and they also rely on it because they're kind of financially independent people. They are also often living off their crypto or Bitcoin and savings.
Right.
So they really need to make sure that they kind of own it, because otherwise they don't have money to live from, because many of them don't have the job. Can I also access my Bitcoin if Casa is offline? So maybe I cannot access the app because the guy from the Federal Reserve just made it offline. Can I really get my Bitcoin then?
Yeah, you can. So that's Casa is all about, you hold your own keys and you are always able to access your Bitcoin, even if Casa goes down. So if Casa were to suddenly disappear overnight, you can still use other software to rebuild your wallet because you have the keys, and then be able to access your Bitcoin through that other software. Is it going to be as simple as it was to set up with Casa? No, because that's Casa's real benefit, right? We've made it very simple to do this in a secure way. But you always do have that ability to access your Bitcoin, even if Casa completely goes away.
Have you built Casa on kind of existing open source products, maybe some other open source wallet, or using open source protocols? Or what's the stack you can disclose?
Yeah, so we use the reason that this is possible is because the multiple key security setup with Casa, the technical term for it is multi-signature. Because we've built that using the Bitcoin protocol's rules for multi-sig, that's what lets you go and use any other wallet out there, because everybody else can tie into that same Bitcoin protocol rules for creating these wallets. And so, for example, there's an app called Electrum, which is a desktop app that you can download and do this with. There's another one called Spectre that you can download and do this with. And we have guides for people so that they can set this up ahead of time, even if they want to, and have it ready to go in case something were ever to happen to Casa. We've written guides on our blog and all of that. So it all really boils down to the fact that we've built this on Bitcoin, which is an open source protocol.
And I've seen on your website, you really have a lot of information. Even if people don't want to use Casa, they can really find also some of the videos that you made, I think, but also about here, like a threat overview, like phishing, SIM hijacking, which I don't know actually, child pet attack, and so on. So it's really a cool list of things that can go wrong. So I think you made a good job of kind of teaching, educating people so that they can kind of prepare. And
that's our goal. Even if you're not using Casa, we want people to be comfortable holding their own keys, because we think that's the most important thing that comes out of this crypto revolution is if as many people as possible are holding their own keys and being their own bank and having that control and real ownership over their money and their financial assets.
And how do you save the keys that you save from the customers on Casa's side? Is it just a unsecured MySQL database, or how do you secure the keys? Maybe if you have 3 keys, one is, I think, you kind of manage. Is it kind of secure? Have you some? Yeah.
So that's that key that Casa holds is held on an offline special purpose security hardware, which requires somebody, when we are approving a transaction, it actually requires a Casa employee to manually approve it on that physical hardware. And so we don't use that. That's why we don't use that key as part of every transaction. It's meant to be something where if you lose a key, we can help you with that key. And we actually had these verification checks where for our premium clients, we're getting on a video call with you and making sure that you're safe and there's nobody forcing you to do this. And then there's this 48-hour wait period before we sign with the key. So we've put a lot of security measures in place around the use of that key.
How is it called when there's some software where you can emulate a person? So I don't know the name, but
like an AI.
Yes,
fake something. I'm blanking right now.
Fake video. I think also the Russians used it to get into the EU Parliament to attend.
Deep fake, right?
Deep fake, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think therefore you have this 48-hour waiting period. And I think there's also software to recognize if it's a deep fake or not at the moment.
And we also have, as part of that security call, we do a check with special duress words for our clients that we've actually set up ahead of time with them. And so we know we have ways to try and combat that risk of deep fakes to make sure that, hey, this person is actually who they say they are.
That's cool. So you put a lot of thought into it. And how many employees do you have? I mean, you're startup, and probably venture capital funded. So you have kind of more than two part-time.
Yeah. So we're
Okay.
about 35 people today.
Okay, so that's a good chunk. Probably some freelancer, but maybe just 1/3.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually all of our full-time employees, and then we work with some contractors on the side. But we have sizable teams for our client service side of things, because that's a big part of our offering. And so about a fourth of those 35 are people who are just interfacing with our clients every day on video calls, making sure they're safe, making sure they know what they're doing, etc.
And for how long Casa exists as a company? I think people trust longer existing companies more than younger companies.
Yeah, we've been around since early 2018. So the company really got off the ground in early 2018 in its current form. And that was, when we started working on our security product, and we've seen a lot since then. We've grown a lot. We're one of the longest standing Bitcoin companies in the industry at this point, because of how new the industry is. Yeah. And so, and then even before that, my co-founder, Jameson Lopp, who's our CTO, he was the lead infrastructure architect at BitGo. And BitGo is a very secure custodian where they're holding your keys for you, and they're mostly working with institutions. But he saw a lot of the, important technical advances that have happened in the security side of things from Bitcoin. And so he brings in a large amount of experience on the security side, even beyond what, the 4 years now that Casa's been around.
And you have seed rounds, basically. What are you, Serial A or B, or what kind of funding stage do you have?
Yep. So we have raised money from seed investors, and then we have other things that we'll probably be announcing soon around this topic, but I'm not getting into it quite yet.
Of course. So then it looks like you're probably well funded. And what do you think? How will Casa evolve? Because we have also other kind of tokens. Do you maybe plan to also support NFTs in the future, or other tokenized stocks that people can also hold in their wallet? Or is it kind of more like a 3 to 5 years in the future?
It really comes down to, what are our customers asking for the most, and what are their needs, and how do we advance our mission of putting private keys into as many people's hands as possible? How do we advance that as efficiently as possible? And so, right now we are just supporting Bitcoin and are focused on that. Maybe in the future we'll support more than that, but it really comes down to what are the resources that we have, and making sure that we always have the majority of our focus on Bitcoin, simply because we believe it has the biggest chance to impact the world in a positive way. And then second, just really basing it on what our customers need.
Maybe also a B2B question, because I'm also involved in the FinTech Meetup Europe and fintechweekly.com. Do you plan also to offer it as a white label solution for banks or for other institutions, that they can also offering such a service? Or do you say we want to scale kind of alone without offering it to others?
We don't have a plan for white labeling right now. We are talking with some partners about integrations that would, do kind of a tight integration between their software and the Casa software that isn't fully a white label, but is, kind of getting close to that. The Casa to this date has really been a consumer brand, consumer product type of company. And that's what we're really good at. And so while we do see some opportunities in the B2B side of things, And we do actually have some businesses that use our product to secure Bitcoin that they hold in their corporate treasury. We are mostly focused on serving individuals.
Mm. Yeah, I think if you offer it for companies, they also need to support multiple employees that can access or maybe approval workflows and so on. So that's
and we do actually have some of that built. So at that 5K per year tier, we have the ability to add people to your team. And so when you have multiple keys protecting your Bitcoin, it actually is pretty logical that you could give one key to different people on your team. And then they've all got a part of the approval process for any Bitcoin to be sent out of the Treasury wallet. And so we have those types of team features built in at that higher tier level.
Yeah, wonderful. Is there anything else I haven't maybe asked about Casa that people might need to know?
No, I think you've really covered it all. Thank you. And it's like I said, it just comes down to our mission in the end of making it as simple and safe as possible for people to hold their own keys, be their own bank, and secure their Bitcoin without all the anxiety that kind of traditionally has come with that in our industry. So we're trying to do a lot of education. We're trying to build simple products, build a community around this. And we definitely encourage anybody who has questions to reach out to our team. You can get on a call with our team and ask them questions about the product. You can email us, anything like that. So we're really trying to help people to shift to this new way of securing their money.
And how are your plans to be? Have you also plans to become financial independent, or do you say I always would like to work and so on? Or do you think entrepreneurship is a very good road to financial independence?
I think entrepreneurship is a great road to financial independence. I would love to have a very solid base in financial independence for myself and my family. But I think that I will always, in addition to that, that's nice to fall back on. But I think that for a long time, I'll be working and building just because I enjoy building products and solving problems so much. So I don't see myself retiring at age 33, for example.
And you also think maybe you're 45, you still have the motivation. Maybe if you have kind of 2 million in Bitcoin, and you still have the motivation to go out of bed at 8 or 7 and build products or solve problems. Because
I 100%.
Okay, I think some people do have a lack of motivation then afterwards, or are not feeling need some more pressure, I think. And do you think also there's currently the people who believes in I don't need nothing else than ETFs to build my financial independence, and then there's also other people who use options or crypto? Would you say people with ETFs should also have this portion in crypto, or would you say that's okay if they don't only want to go the ETF route?
I mean, in the end, it's really their decision, right? But I think that especially for just think back to what I was kind of saying earlier about why Bitcoin is such a great tool for financial independence. You give up a lot of those benefits if you don't own the Bitcoin directly. And so even if you're viewing Bitcoin as a hedge for a catastrophic event or problems in the financial system, the only way that you hedge against those types of systemic problems are if you are holding the Bitcoin yourself, not through an ETF, not keeping it on an exchange. You got to hold the keys, because if the whole financial system is melting down, you are unlikely to be able to access the Bitcoin that is sitting in your ETF. All the liquidity will lock up. It's going to be very difficult to be able to use that, either use it as money or cash it out to actually be like getting cash to use in your life or whatever. So I think that even if it's a small portion of your portfolio, if you are really serious about financial independence, it's important to have a little piece of that in Bitcoin and make sure you're holding the keys for it.
And we all know it's not, there's a probability that the financial system collapse somehow is not close to is not zero, but it's increasing somehow. Yeah, cool. And as a trend scout or a tech person, what are the next things in crypto, Web3, NFT, DeFi, and so on, trends you see for the next year or two that are emerging?
I think that within the Bitcoin space specifically, we're seeing some of the primitives that have been built in DeFi and some of the other crypto ecosystems like Ethereum starting to come over to Bitcoin. And that's exciting. But we're also starting to see more adoption of things like the Lightning Network, which is a layer 2 for Bitcoin, which actually makes it much faster to send Bitcoin. And you can send much smaller amounts. You can send micro payments of less than a cent if you want to. So I think that is something that I really am excited about and I'm keeping an eye on. And then within the broader crypto ecosystem, I know NFTs have been really hot over the last 6 months. What I'm kind of expecting with NFTs is that we saw a very early version of them with all of the kind of profile pictures and little art animals and stuff that people are putting as their profile pictures on Twitter, which builds community. And I think that it's pretty interesting to have seen that grow. But I think that it's actually kind of an early toy version of what NFTs could actually turn into in the future. And I think that there are a few different groups, teams, companies building on NFTs in ways that will unlock much more than we're thinking about today. And, it's things that I don't even know about that are getting built kind of behind the scenes and haven't even launched yet. So I'm pretty excited about what's going on there and looking forward to watching that evolve over the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to imagine what people can kind of create with their imagination and technology. So I'm curious. So thank you very much for the interview. See you next time, hopefully. And I would encourage everybody to check out Casa and have a look at it. So thank you very much.
And if you just to give real quick plug our website, the website is keys.casa. So that's KEYS.CASA. Or you can follow us on Twitter at Casa Hodl. So that's CASAHODL.
Cool. We'll also put it in the show notes that people can also click on it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mathias.